Will AI be taking over our jobs? That question seems to be the central theme of discussion for almost all the technical debates nowadays. Hi, this is Aditya, and having more than a decade-long career in data analytics, machine learning, business intelligence, and AI, I plan on demystifying this question. I will make an attempt to create an end-to-end data analytics pipeline prototype, and without writing one single line of code in the development environment. Now, in this prototype, I am trying to have all the components of an ELT, a data modeling, and a visualization. My partner in this rather audacious attempt is going to be Codex. A word of advice: this is not going to be free in case you plan on following along. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Before building the prototype, let me first create a design of it. My elements in this particular prototype are the ones that you see on your screen. My database is going to be DuckDB, which is like a lightweight Python-based database, extremely useful for creating any sort of small prototype. My analytics tool of choice is going to be dbt, and the place where I'll be doing my visualizations is going to be Streamlit. My data is going to be sourced from Kaggle, which is like the go-to system or go-to website for all data professionals for getting sample data sets. And the visualizations will actually be seen by users from the Streamlit application. Now let me first understand the data that I'll be dealing with for this prototype. I will be using this marketing funnel by OList data schema that has two datasets. One is a marketing qualified leads dataset and the other one is the closed leads dataset. Now for those who are not aware of the nuances of marketing qualified leads or closed deals or marketing analytics at large, just follow along, as understanding this is two simple datasets that are connected by a column that's the MQL ID. Similarly, we have a sellers dataset that has a list of sellers who are actually selling the products and a list of products in the order items dataset. Both of them are connected by means of the seller ID, and the closed deal datasets is connected to the sellers dataset by means of the seller ID. This at large represents the overall data schema. We will be figuring this out as and when we create our prototype. Now let's go to the building part of it. Now let's start building the prototype. I have already installed Codex on my machine. The instructions were pretty straightforward from the OpenAI installation website. If you are following along from a Windows system, you might have to use something like a WS2 Windows subsystem for Linux and install Codex over there. Let's get started now. Additionally, I will also be looking at two different tools which I'll be referring to pretty frequently. The one is dbeaver, that will help me query the datasets that I will be ingesting, and the second one is VS Code, which is very popular for coding. Let's now first write our prompt to create the environment. I'm going to initialize Codex in this project directory that I've created called marketing analytics, and the same I have already opened on my VS Code. All right, so let's now begin prompting the system. I'll just put the first prompt, and for the simplicity and not spending enough time writing the prompts, I've already put them aside in a different document, which I'll be just pasting and explaining as I go along. So in this first step, we are creating an automated downloading script from Kaggle website. The dataset names which I will be using or downloading in the script are the same URLs we saw a few minutes back. And the process is going to actually download the datasets using my Kaggle API credentials that are placed in the .kaggle.json file. It explicitly contains instructions like, if the file is already available, let's not download it again. And the entire process is going to be created by means of a reusable Python script or a shell script. Let's see what happens. Now we can see that the agent has already started working. The good thing about this is it actually shows you the steps that it is performing. Now if you can look over here, see what are the skills needed for preparing the setup. And it's going to accordingly prepare the setup for that. It started preparing the script, and it has also created a scripts directory. This looks to be the script that is prepared for downloading the datasets. It's also considering some post download action items. It says it's already prepared a script and asking me if I want to run it. Before actually running it, I'm going to do a manual validation of all the steps that we see that our agent is performing, just to ensure that it doesn't do something which I am not requesting it to do. And naturally, I can see two folders created. The data folder is not supposed to have anything, it's just having data in raw, and the scripts folder has the download Kaggle dataset.py. And this just wrote an 82 line Python script in a matter of, I think, 10 to 15 seconds. This is just mind blowing. And if you look at it, it's actually considering the datasets that I requested it to download in the directories. And the code is pretty modular. So it seems to follow all the best practices of writing a Python code. Now, one thing that I see over here is that this particular code does not have any comments. That's something I definitely like it to improve upon. Let me try to do that. Your downloader script doesn't have code comments. Can you please add some comments for better code readability and understanding? This behaves like some of my juniors who are working in my team who do not write comments whatsoever on any code that they're working on. And it has started working on that exercise. Let's go. And we can see some comments added. So this is resolving the root directory, this is mapping the additional destination folders, this looking at the credentials file, this is looking at the presence of the data set, skipping the download if it is already has the file, and it's downloading the data sets. And we have the main function, and in case of no files found, it says the same and returns to the. This looks promising. Now let's see how we can execute this. Can you run the Python script and download the datasets? It's saying it needs network access to download the dataset, which I am going to authorize. And this is actually good. Each time it accesses your network to download something, it's explicitly asking your permission. Best not to override this whenever we are working with coding agents, so as you have better control on what is it that we are downloading. Okay, and we see that the second download dataset was corrupted. It just wants me to remove the bad zip file and rerun the script. I'll just ask it to do it again. This is now removing the corrupted file and is rerunning the download for the last script. It says as the file downloads have been completed. I'll quickly manually validate that step. I'll go to the data folder and I see the two datasets created in two different directories, the Brazilian e-commerce dataset and the marketing funnel OList dataset. Now, if you look at the Brazilian e-commerce dataset, we just needed two items from this, the sellers and the order line items. But I think this script has downloaded everything under that particular schema. However, we will just be utilizing these sellers and the orders dataset, order items dataset in this one. So this seems to be proper. I'll close this data. It's saying if it wants to write a short note in the readme.md so that it can know that it ran a script to download the file. We just asked it to update the README as well. It's always a good process to update READMEs so that in future we always know what is being done or what are the set of steps that have been performed. Now, an interesting point that I'd like to call out in this is at the very bottom, you see something like 100% context left. This is very important for us to know what is the amount of context that is left. Context is something like that tells you what is the nature of the command that you're giving and what does it have a relationship with the previous commands that have been given. Once you exhaust these 100% context that is available, the agent will stop recognizing the prompts that are coming as sequential, and you will have to probably be more descriptive in the prompting because it will just cease to accept any updates to the existing context. Like if you look at the prompts that I've given till now, it is first it downloads a script or creates a script, then it downloads the files, and then it sort of updates the README. So these are all sequence of steps where one has a relationship with the other. In case this 100% context is utilized, the agent will no longer continue to have updates to the context, essentially meaning that it will cease to understand anything new that you're trying to do in the same sequence of steps. And in that case, the prompts will have to be more exhaustive. All right. Now, let's go to the next step. Now that my dataset download is done, what I'm going to do is set up my environment for the components that are required. I will be setting up DBT, I'll be setting up DuckDB, and I will be creating the respective project environments required. So in this step, I'm creating a local Python environment for data analytics prototype. I'm also having the MKTG Analytics VNV as a virtual environment. And these are the libraries that I'll be downloading. Since this is a prototype, I will not be using Docker. And I will be adding the gitignore and pycache files. So let's do it. And it started working on them. It's asking me to upgrade pip or network access to fetch the packages from PyPy. That's fine. I'll give it the access this time. I'll also ask it to install the libraries from the requirements.txt file. And started installing the dependencies. And seems like our environment is set up. Now that our environment setup is complete, I'll be doing some data profiling on the datasets that I've already ingested. So in this step, I will be profiling the marketing qualified leads, closed deals, sellers, and order line items dataset. And the objective is to check for primary keys, foreign keys, and also understand the relationship between the data items. I'm not loading this data directly on DuckDB right now before I do the data profiling. This is to understand if my coding agent can understand the context of the data and give me a detailed analysis on how the data looks like. It's gathering the metrics now for all the files that I requested it to perform the analysis on. Profiling is a very important component in any data analytics application. Without understanding how the data types are or how the data elements are linked to one another, it becomes very difficult to write any sort of logic for any pipeline. It's creating a docs directory for keeping this profile documentation, which is actually good. And this is another great thing about this agent. It's logically categorizing all documents that it creates into different folders, saying it wants to add a pointer in README, should be fine. While it does that, let me actually look at the profile that it has created. And I see the stocks folder over here. I'm going to open this data profiling.md. Okay, let's see what it has done. Now for all the individual files that I requested a download of, the 4 files basically, it has done some analysis in terms of the rows, the number of columns, what are the primary key candidates, if there is any foreign key candidate, and so on. Now this is actually a very exhaustive data profiling. It also gives me the relationship of how the foreign keys are connected. Like the MQL ID connects to this closed or deals dataset, marketing qualified leads dataset. Like the MQL ID and the seller ID, there is 100% coverage. Now this is a very exhaustive documentation. Now this cross dataset key coverage summary is extremely important. So it tells you that the MQL ID is a parent key for this marketing qualified dataset. Now we have downloaded the data, we have set up the environment, we have done our basic data profiling. Now let us set up the DBT project and from there on start loading this data into our DuckDB. Let me first load this data before initializing the DBT project. So I'm just giving a simple prompt to load the data sets in DuckDB, and I'm going to do some dataset renaming. I'm going to rename marketing qualified leads to MQLs, closed deals dataset to just closed deals, and so on and so forth. And I'm asking to create it within the raw schema of the DuckDB database. Let's do this. Started working on it. It's asking me where should it create the DuckDB database file. Now, this is a database that works mostly as an underlying file and all the updates are pushed to it in the files itself. I'm asking it to create it in the data path only, which we have. So basically that data set is going to come and lie in this data path over here. It's asking me to give a specific path name. I've specified marketing analytics.duckdb. An interesting part over here is it already understands what is it that I am trying to create and it's giving me suggestions accordingly. Like it's asking me what should I choose for my underlying file of the DuckDB database, and it's very related. Like you don't have anything that's not related. Now it has loaded the data and it's under the raw schema. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the DuckDB to dbeaver and see if I can do some querying. Now I'm on my dbeaver. I'll set up a connection. DuckDB next. I'm going to select this marketing analytics.duckdb file. I'm going to open, finish. And inside the raw schema, I can already see the tables that I requested it to ingest. They're already there. Let me do some querying. Like star from raw dot closed deals. And we have the data. So it has MQL ID, seller ID, SDR is the sales development representative, and SR is the sales rep. This is a very specific marketing and sales dataset because we are working on a marketing funnels use case. And this looks good. Let me actually also look at the MQL dataset. MQL ID, landing page. Okay, it just has 4 columns. First contact date. Landing page is the website from where that lead came in. And it also gives me the origin of that particular MQL. If it's an email, if it's an organic search, if it's a paid search. So this looks great. I think the overall data resides in my DuckDB now. Now I am going to initialize my DBT project since my data has already been ingested in my source layer. I'm asking the agent to create a DBT project by the name inside the marketing analytics folder and call it the marketing analytics DBT project. And I'm also giving it the list of files that is there for the raw tables. It's preparing the initialization of the environment for DBT. Okay, it got a permission error in the .dbt folder. Let's see how does it handle this issue. There are some issues that it's encountering in the way. It's handling them. This is interesting. So what is said is that it cannot initialize the DBT project and it could not create the DuckDB views because the database file under dbeaver is actually locked. That's because dbeaver is already accessing it. And because it's a single threaded connection, it doesn't allow concurrent writers. So in order for me to solve this, I will have to close out the connection. That's what I'm going to do exactly now. I'm going to click disconnect. I'm going to say disconnected DuckDB. Please proceed forward. Okay, it has created the views. Now, however, there were 4 files, but I see only 3 over here: raw MQL, raw closed deals, raw sellers. That's because one of the files were not mentioned in the initial prompt. The order items file is actually missing. So I'll put the prompt again. Now the order items file was actually missing as a source. So I have put it again and asked it to rerun. And while it does so, let me actually check the dbt files it has created. Now this is the project marketing analytics dbt, and it has created all the folders that is expected in a dbt project. Project.yaml is my path. I can see the project name, giving the profile. Materialization is view, which is fine for the current context. And it's also added the order items dataset. Now that the raw datasets are created, what I'll be doing next is creating some staging tables, which is like a refined data on top of my raw, and the data sets for the staging schema is going to be differently positioned or arranged, having different set of attributes. So I'm creating 4 staging tables: model stage MQL, stage close leads, stage sellers, and stage order items. I'm giving it a few requirements on how it should be creating these staging tables and what all attributes it should be having. You can just pause over here and take a look at the requirements in details if you so wish. I'll be running this prompt. It has started creating the staging folder. And the sequels are also being drafted for the DBT model. Now, another interesting thing in this prompt is that I never mentioned these models to be created in DBT. When I just said that run DBT to create the staging models after I mentioned the instructions on how the staging models are to be created. It automatically understands the context of what it should do in terms of creating those data models and does that accordingly. It's already editing the dbt project.yaml file. And now it is actually running the data models with the dbt run command. Now I can see it has already created these staging models. Let me go to my dweaver and see if I can query these staging models. Try to connect marketing analytics. And inside main schema, I can see stage close deals, stage MQL order items, and sellers as my staging tables. Let me look at the data. Just be looking at one of them. Or maybe I'll query the close deals as well. All right. And we have the corresponding views for staging. In the next step, I am going to create some facts and dimensions on top of this staging data model. Let me first create the dimensions model. I will be having dim date, origin, landing page, and sellers, along with SDR, sales rep, and lead profile as my dimensions. The rules of the dimensions I've already mentioned, and I'll also be making schema.yml file changes to add tests for null checks and uniqueness checks while I create these dimensions. It's understood the context of my instruction. I have 83% of context left, which is substantially high for the remainder of my project, considering that we are creating facts and dimensions right now. My remaining steps are going to be creation of data marts. That will be the consumption layer of data. And finally, the visualizations on top of the marts for the KPIs which I am interested to understand. I will disconnect my DuckDB, otherwise it's going to give me the same error again. Now this is very important if you're working on a single threaded system, that you have to close out the connections for the agent to work. It says the models are created. Let me ask it to run the DBT models. Run the DBT models for dimensions. Started executing the DBT commands, and I can see what is it that it's executing. It says it has successfully run the 7 dimension models. Let me validate that from dweaver. I'll go to marketing analytics, domain, to views, and I can see dimensions being added. I'll just query one of them. I'll query the dim sales rep. It just has a sales ID. Let me query the SDR. Okay, that has the SDR ID. Let me look at the dim origin. I believe it has the list of channels. Yep, and that's how it is. Now, one thing I observe over here is that it's putting everything under the main schema, so to speak. I would like to reorganize this. Maybe have a staging schema for the staging datasets and a dimension schema to have the dimension dataset. Let me try to run a prompt for that. The views for staging and dimensions appear to be in the same main schema. Can you separate it? Can you it to staging and dimension schemas for better logical data grouping? It is trying to get the context of this prompt, and it has separated it out. It's running the models, but it will fail because the dbeaver is connected, and it does so. Let me disconnect the dbeaver. Please retry. Okay, it says that it has separated it into main underscore staging and main underscore dimensions. I don't want these main underscore prefixes. Please adjust the dbt profile or project configurations to remove the main underscore prefix from the schemas. And this is like, it's going to make all the configurational changes based on the understanding from this prompt. It's like a senior engineer that's sitting on your terminal who understands the context of your command and makes the changes appropriately. Says it wants to clean up the main schemas. I'll ask it to do it. I'll ask it to revalidate the new schemas as well. Okay, so it has run a few dbt tests and it tells me what is it that has failed. I'll look at this later. Let me first validate the schema changes if that has been appropriately reflected. I'll open this. I'll open marketing analytics and I can see dimensions and staging as separate schemas along with raw and main. I'll expand dimensions. I'll go to views and I have all the dimensions over here. And this is just great. It understands every bit of the context that I mentioned. It did the cleanup appropriately and it has categorized my data according to the exact needs that I have. Now let's look at the data issues that the codex has identified for me. I can see that it says that there are 462 seller IDs in the stage closed deals that are missing from the stage sellers. Now, ideally, that should not be something that is there on an enterprise level dataset, but we can understand this dataset is right now at a level of prototyping. So I think we can go ahead with these assumptions that there will be some missing data linkages between datasets. It also says that there are some duplicates in origin, which I think should be fine for now to go ahead with. Now I'll be creating the fact models, and these are the rules that I'll be using to create the fact datasets. I will be using primary key foreign key relationship and also be creating these facts in the fact schema because I want that logical separation of the datasets reside in my DuckDB. Started working on it. And I can see that the fact models have been created. Now let me validate those fact models once. And as instructed, it's there in the fact schema as views. Our next step is to create the MART models. And I have already specified the rules that I'll be using to create the MART. I will also be creating them in a different MART schema as per the conventions that I've been following for these datasets. Just started working on this request as well. And I can see changes being made in schema.yaml. And I can see the MART models have been created. Let me now validate the data once. And they are in the MART schema. But they do exist as views. Now this is going to be a fundamental problem because the visualizations will actually be on top of the MART datasets. I would want to materialize them as tables, and that's what I'm doing right now. Make these changes to the appropriate dbt configs files. And I can see that these are now created as tables. And the views have also been cleaned up. So it understood the context and it was able to do the appropriate cleanup as well without me explicitly specifying. Now for the final part, we just need to create the visualizations. We are already done with the ingestion. We have completed the ELT processes. We have completed the exploratory analysis, and we've also created the staging, dimensions, facts, and MART. Now this is the only component that's left, which is creation of the Streamlit visualization application. So let's try to do this. So in the Streamlit application, I'm trying to create 4 distinct pages for the different KPIs. This is the first page, which is like an executive overview. It contains the KPI cards, which I am mentioning over here. I also want the system to warn me if in case any of the marts are missing. And I'm just giving it the mart name from where to read and what the functionalities should be in the visualization in terms of filters and sidebar settings. It is creating the Streamlit application for me now. It wrote a beautiful script. Now, if I'm having to write this Streamlit application, I'll probably take a day in itself to write this entire script end to end in terms of the entire Streamlit application. Okay, so it says it has already created the executive overview page. I'll add the second page, which is the funnel performance page. And this page is going to lie inside the same Streamlit application, which I created. And it's created the second page as well with the filters that I've mentioned. It's also giving me some notes and pointers. Let me now go ahead and create the third page. Now this is going to read from the MART SDR SR performance because the metrics are relevant to that specific MART. After this, I will just be having one more page in my Streamlit application, and it has created it. Let me now add the final. This is going to consume the data from the post acquisition revenue mart. I've added the filters, what needs to be in the visualization, and the slider components as well for the better visualization. It has created the fourth page as well. Let me quickly go and validate the scripts that has created. And I can see a directory by the name of, or a folder by the name of Streamlit apps. We close the other files. Let me open the Streamlit app, and I can see 4 scripts that are written for each of the individual Streamlit application page. One thing I did observe in this entire application is that it does not have an index page, so probably it would be good to create one. Create an index page in this Streamlit application which houses the other 4 pages for better navigation. And it has created a Streamlit homepage called home.py as well. Let me validate that as well. Okay, it's creating the home.py outside of the pages folder, which is actually logical. Now I want to test the Streamlit application. Can you give me the command to run this Streamlit app? Okay, it's saying I need to be in the Streamlit directory and just use this home.py. Let me try to do that. Now I cannot ask Codex to actually run this. The reason for that is the Streamlit application runs by means of a session. So if Codex executes the command and it comes out of that particular command session, the application would also be killed in the backend. So it has to keep the session running for the application to stay on. Can you modify this command to run it from any directory? So I'm just doing it because I don't want to each time go to this Streamlit application, adding an absolute path to this. It's just that I'm trying to be a bit lazy. Okay, let me actually create a duplicate shell. Let me try to run this Streamlit command. Okay. It seems like there is an error. Okay, I did understand what is going on. I think there have been some spaces after the Streamlit app path. That's why it failed. Let me try to run this now. And it does run actually. It has created the Streamlit application with the home and the 4 pages that I needed. Let me check the individual pages and test it out if it's running fine. And I have an error in the executive overview, funnel performance, sales performance, and post revenue win. I think there is some library that's missing. or maybe it never got a chance to run or get the data from the marts because the connection is already probably being utilized. Let me disconnect the DuckDB from dbeaver, and I'm going to execute the Streamlit command again. Do this. I'm going to exit this. I'm going to run this again. Okay, let me see if it yields any error from here. It's saying database does not exist. Still seems to have this error. Let me give this error to the coding agent and see if we can figure it out. I'm getting the below error in my Streamlit application. It has added something in the utils file. Okay, so it's using a dynamic path retrieval mechanism now to get the file path, because I am actually executing it outside of the marketing analytics directory. So it has actually created the script to now dynamically execute or get the database path. Let me see if that works. And it works beautifully. I have the executive overview, I have the funnel performance, I have the sales performance, and I do have a post win revenue does have an issue. And it mostly seems to be with the data type. Let's see if my Codex agent can actually help me figure this out. Post win revenue page has an issue. Below is the trace back error. Let me see if we can comprehend the data mapping or data type mapping issue and help solve this. It says it has fixed it. Let me try to rerun. And this page is also fixed. I do have the win after revenue distribution and also the cohort summary of the average revenue, the median revenue, and the sellers count. So overall, I have my visualization ready. I actually did not need that index page because I already had this navigation tab over here. That is fine. This is very interesting, and it gives you a host of information about the KPIs that I've actually built. Okay, now this is another issue that I've identified, the SDR and SR wins heat map. It says heat map view unavailable in this environment. Let me ask what's going wrong with this. I got an issue with the heat map. Let me ask my agent to fix that as well. I need the heat map to be working because that's the most interesting piece of the visualization. Let me run this again. And the heat map works perfectly. If I look at this heat map, this actually maps the sales development representatives and the sales reps. So SDRs are ones who actually help develop that particular lead, and SRs are the ones who close it from the data set. And over here, this actually tells me which combination of SDR and SRs work perfectly. So I can see this combination of SDR ID and SR ID has the most number of deals won. And so same as this. So anything that is dark blue colored is definitely working. That's like more close to around 25 wins. And the lighter the shade, the lesser the number of deals closed. So this actually gives me a very important insight on which combination of SDR, SR are actually closing the most number of deals. So it tells me what is working on those combinations and what does not work, which helps me identify conditions by which I can actually increase revenue. In a nutshell, we have the entire visualization now ready. So we have completed the overall prototype that we have discussed as part of this design. Now this completes the prototype end to end. All the components that were discussed in the solution design have been successfully implemented. Now I did not have any testing steps in this particular video, but I have done the due diligence on the data to test them out, and they appear to check out, at least for the limited set of test cases that I had, and this seems to be working successfully. Coming to the initial question that we began with, is AI going to be a replacement for our jobs? Let's now try to distinguish what is it that AI has done in this particular prototype and what is it that I have done. From the AI role perspective, it was able to execute all the commands and all the contexts that I had given it in the form of prompts. It was able to understand the sequence of steps and was accurately able to solve issues as well as and when they cropped up because of issues in either libraries not being present or some connection issues or their files being corrupt, whatever it may be. It was also able to debug issues that had come up in the pipelines, like libraries missing or data type issues, mismatches, and so on and so forth. Now let's understand where the AI did not have a role to play, and that area is actually substantial. For starters, the AI did not have any role to play in the solution design. So one thing that we can say for sure is that in this entire prototype, the design, the components, and the elements that I have chosen, they were completely my own decision. The AI had absolutely no role to play in suggesting what is it that I should be using for this prototype. Secondly, the entire business logic was completely driven by me. The AI did not have any role to play in suggesting what business logics should be applied and what KPIs should I be measuring. They completely come from the demands of the business, and so on. The prototype also had the same. Third, and the most important factor, the overall idea or the overall sequence of steps which were needed to be executed in creation of this prototype was completely being driven by me. Of course, it was able to provide suggestions in crucial times and was able to understand the context that I was giving it in the form of the sequence, but still the design of that sequence was something which I had completely built. The AI had no role to play. So if I try to sum up all of these points and come to one final conclusion, it's definitely going to be that the coding agent is a great enabler, but it's not a replacement for me in this entire long run process. The solution design, the execution of steps, the understanding of the business context, and the overall testing, all of which were something which I had done independently of the assistance of the AI. And therefore, this acts as an enabler and not a replacement. I believe that brings me to a conclusion of this video. Stay safe, happy coding.